What do I do? Allow?
Got it.
The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast with Dotun Adebayo and Tim Vickery.
Yeah, we've got with us today the great writer, former chief football editor for the Daily Express, amongst other things, Rob Shepherd is with us as well. But of course, Rob, and we have this, you're forever blowing bubbles, I understand.
Yes, sorry, the line was bubbling a little bit there, but I guess
it was, This London infrastructure is not very good, I think, Rob. You know, the third world is far, far, far better.
About the London war zone, my goodness me, it's surely not that bad since I've left it, for goodness sake.
No, and the war zone's still there, very much in effect. West Ham aren't doing so well on their front, as it were.
Oh, look, sorry. Hold everything. You got to give me a chance to get this out of my system. You must.
Go on.
We're with Rob Shepherd, who's a gentleman of huge trajectory and enormous respect, who I did have the enormous pleasure of meeting nearly 26 years ago. And I bugged the hell out of him then, and I can't resist it. I have to bug the hell out of him now. Rob.
Yeah.
Rob. I cannot go on with faces like that.
Well,
sorry, I can't. Yeah. When you're in the presence of someone who's made history, this is Rob Shepherd's participation in that immortal Graham Taylor documentary when Taylor just goes off at him, you know. And I bugged him 26 years ago, and I'm going to bug him now because we can't go with faces like that. You wouldn't have a fucking chance, Rob. You wouldn't have a fucking chance.
Well, I mean, as people can actually tell that I don't know that particular take from the Do I Not Like That documentary, the sort of Monty Python-esque documentary that it became, they will recognise that Graham did have a point, because I really did have a good face for radio, but, you know, podcasts, I think I'm trying to make a comeback now, and I haven't aged badly. I mean, it's 26 years since I saw you. I mean, you're doing well, a bit of grey hair, but you haven't put any timber on, and I presume you're still in Brazil.
In Rio. Yeah, still in Rio, just around the Johnny Horner from where we last met 26 years ago. And Rob ended our conversation with the famous words, I got a great idea. Hang on, I've got a great idea. I'm going to run it past you. And here we are nearly 26 years later. And like Diana Ross, I'm still waiting.
Right, well, you brought Diana Ross into it, so you raised me there. But I said, Michael Caine there, I've got a plan at the end of the Italian job, if you remember that scene. What it was I probably was going to get back to you. I was on the beach with Howard Wilkinson having breakfast, which sounds a strange scenario to a lot of people. And this guy started walking past. He looks, you know, like he was wearing a tracksuit and stuff. I said, "Who's that?" And it was Gerson, one of the great players of the 1970 World Cup winning side. And I said to Howard, and you know, I said, has he got decent English? You know, because I could do an interview with him. He said, "Yeah, no, he's pretty good." So I said, "Could you call him over?" So he calls him over, and I sit down. I said, "Hello, Gerson. I'm blah blah blah," and we had a good chat. And the thing that had really interested me about Brazil and Brazilian footballers was there's so many, and when you see them on the beach now, don't you, every day, and what becomes apparent is they learn to play they're great with the ball on the ground, but because of the sand they have to play it off the ground so much and all the control. But and they get a lot of the players from the sort of not so good areas, favelas or whatever. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but Gerson explained how they helped structure players that were raw by simply giving them discs with numbers. And it's funny how the world has turned around on its axis, because by that time we had numbers on shirts and names, and you know, players wearing 23 Beckham or whatever, you know, all different numbers. And Gerson explained that he would give these kids 2, 3 right back, left back, 7 right wing, 11, and 5 for centre half, 9 for centre forward. Very, very, very simple. And my understanding is Wilkinson has developed that, or got academies to develop that, which is why, and now it's seeped back into the language of the game. This guy's a number 6. He's a number 7. He's a number 4. What is a number 4? Well, for me, growing up as a West Ham fan, a number 4, a right half or a wing half, was Billy Bonds.
Jesus.
And there's another connection between Brazil 1970 and Billy Bonds, isn't it? Which is Bobby Moore. You got Bobby Moore in the middle.
If Bobby Moore here, this is Bobby Moore's book, which is his first book, 1974-75. If Bobby Moore was his deity, but this fella here, if you can see him in the shine there, it's on the back of a program from 1976, 77. If Bobby Moore was a deity, then Billy Bonds was the blood and the tears of Christ to the West Ham faithful, because he espoused all those. Yeah, he carried on. He took over the armband. Well, it was before the armbands were. He took over the captaincy, and he continued to preach the gospel according to the West Ham way, which wasn't all fancy football, although we liked that, but we also wanted pride and passion. Those two factors combined, when West Ham were at their best, and there were moments when they were absolutely outrageously good, and the Bonds defined so many of those attributes. Also, because of the way he played, in times of extremis, he came to their rescue as well. So, Dawn, you've been very quiet.
No, not at all. I was listening with wonder, and the thing that struck me most about all the obits about Billy Bonds was that he played 799 games, one club. He comes from Charlton, which is my domain, but nevertheless, he's always remembered as a number 4 for West Ham, even as I was in that era. But it seems like he played every single match there was to play.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Well, he did play. I mean, he joined West Ham from Charlton in 1967 for £70,000 or whatever it was, and he played through until 1988. There were a few occasions. One occasion in the 70s he had a bad injury, and then in the mid 80s he was out for about 18 months. He didn't play in the season West Ham finished third and possibly could have won the title for the only time. But he was around for he rarely missed a game. The two injuries that he had were broken bones. I mean, and they were the only things that really stopped him. And also, he pretty much played everywhere on the pitch, particularly when he was in midfield. He would 1 minute be defending, the next minute he'd be setting an attack up. He would score goals. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people would say, and Tim will come in on this, people would say, yeah, but he weren't a skillful player. Yeah, he weren't like a Brazilian. He wasn't a touch player. Technically, he was a good first time with the ball, but yeah, I mean, it was the juxtaposition of Sunday in terms of the way the fans paid tribute to Billy Bonds before kickoff against Liverpool, and indeed the Liverpool fans, and then the way that West Ham performed were not really, in the manner of which Billy would have liked to have played. And I'm going to have to bring the fellow up, Paqueta, who got himself sent off, in a completely. I mean, Billy Bonds was a tough guy. He got in trouble with the referee a few times. Don't get me wrong. He was quite vocal, but it was shameful. It was shameful to Billy Bonds' memory, the way that Paqueta disgraced himself on Sunday. And when we look back at all the great Brazilian sides, the great ones were usually had someone of steel in the midfield, or certainly the successful side. So you go back even to 70, Clodalao, if that's a good pronunciation, and you know, the revival in the 90s, Dunga, players like that. And I watched Brazil play Senegal recently, and Paquetá was on the bench. I don't see him. I don't see Carlo Ancelotti eventually picking Paquetá for the World Cup squad. He's a player that has certain sublime talents and passes, but you know, 2 passes every 10 games and 4 goals a season isn't good enough. What do you think, Tim?
If I can take you back to Billy Bonds, because I've got a real soft spot for West Ham, and I love Bobby Moore, and I love him. But this always gets me. What I'm going to say now always gets me into trouble with West Ham fans. I'd love your view on it. I think Billy Bonds was a better captain of West Ham than Bobby Moore. Bobby Moore, I think, was a fantastic captain of England. But see, I see Billy Bonds a little bit, and you were there for all of it. I see Bonds as a victim of the tragedy of West Ham, because what they could have become, you know, where they were mid-60s, and that performance when they won the Cup Winners' Cup in 65, 1860 Munich. You watch that today, and it's modern, and it's fantastic. They really, really had something. And it all got frittered away. And I think one of the things that seems to have gone wrong was that Moore sensed that there was a lack of ambition, wanted out. West Ham wouldn't let him go. You know, he was going to join Tottenham after the 66 World Cup. West Ham wouldn't let him. And in those days, they didn't have to. And once they've got the World Cup captain, they're never going to let him go. And there's no freedom of contracts. So they keep him. And poor old Ron Greenwood has to coach him and also has to negotiate the wage rises. And Moore's not getting paid what he thinks he should be getting paid. So the relationship between Moore and Greenwood breaks down. And it seems to drag the whole club into a morass of mediocrity that they really shouldn't have been. And in the middle of all this, you got Billy Bonds giving 100%. Year after year after year, and not getting the return that he should be getting because there's something badly wrong with the setup. And I think it maybe would have been better. All right, if Moore's not, just let him go and build without him. Do you agree with that, or is this sacrilege?
I think no, it's not. Well, it is sacrilege to a lot of people, but you make some very resonant points actually, and. That Bobby did become disillusioned. Not so much. It pre-66. It was complicated because his contract was running down. In fact, it was out of contract, and there was a potential move to Tottenham. And if you remember, well, you may not, but Bobby Moore was, because he was out of contract ahead of 66 finals. So he was out of contract in the April or May. Contracts weren't the same as they are now. He didn't have a contract. He was forced. He wouldn't have played for England. He'd not signed a new contract for West Ham. Yeah. Right? And so he kind of was rushed into that. And in about 67, which was the year Billy Bonds joined, which was when they were trying to not so much rebuild, but, you know, continue. You mentioned the 65 Cup Winners' Cup final when they played this wonderful game, and that one or two of those players, Ken Brown, who was a great centre half to Bobby Moore's, you know, libero, if you wanted to call that, you know, the first number 6, the first inside left that really dropped to play as a centre half. They needed to replace certain players. One particular was the goalkeeper. Now, Bobby Moore had lined up Gordon Banks to join West Ham.
From Leicester City, where he was at the time, yeah?
Yeah. And because Leicester had a goalkeeper called Peter Shilton coming through.
Whatever happened to him?
So Leicester, yeah. So Leicester were, and but Greenwood had agreed, man's honour and all that, to buy the goalkeeper from Kilmarnock, right, in Scotland. Now they'd actually won the Scottish, top tier division. I think for the only time in their history. Certainly won't probably ever win it again. And I think I might be safe on that bet. Bobby Ferguson, who was at the time of the world record goalkeeping signing for about 90 grand or something. And then leading up to 70, there was another contract coming up, Tottenham again, maybe Man United. Although actually, I got to know Bobby Moore at the Italia 90 World Cup, by which time he was working for Capital Radio. And inevitably, we had a few late beers and stuff like that, talking about obviously the World Cup that year, but also what kind of really happened. And we're not going to talk about Bogota and the bracelet scenario, because that's a longer subject. And Bobby, the thing was the amount of money involved in what you were getting from the difference in wages from West Ham to Man United was more, but not hugely more. And Bobby had a lot of business interests in England, but there's no, and he decided to stay at West Ham with his family and all other factors that came into play. Of course, Peters had made the move. But there was a bit where Greenwood was kind of shackling him to the club. And I think certainly from after the 70 World Cup, you're quite right that Bobby was sort of playing out time, even though he was still England captain. And he was still performing for England, really, until he got caught out against Poland in 73 away, Katowice, the beginning of the end for him and obviously Ramsey. And Bonds around all this, Bonds had all these things falling off the tree, and the players like Frank Lampard Senior, as he's called now, and Trevor Brooking were very young, and they were coming through, and so it became a period of quite certainly. I went there first in 1969. That was the first game I saw, and pretty much all I could remember for 3 or 4 years was all this great story about West Ham having won the World Cup, and all I could see was relegation battle and some really dodgy players, apart from this bloke with a beard who kind of looked a bit like Jesus or Che Guevara even. Certainly he had that attitude, and he kind of, for us sort of rebellious chaps, we kind of liked that the Billy Bonds way of playing, and because he never gave up, and that appealed to a section of the fans. And West Ham was a very complicated club at that time in terms of the following of the fans, lots of things happening off the pitch as well, and Billy Bonds was and I say off the pitch, with crowd violence and all sorts of things that were going on with racism in football at the time, and the breakthrough of Clyde Best and the great strides that, I mean, him and Bob Bonzo kind of embraced Clyde in a way that kind of you could see visibly, and it to a big section of the crowd. Clyde was a big fan, but he was also a target to a lot of supporters. So we saw kind of Billy Bonds as a unifying hero for lots of different reasons, or certain sections of us did, and the team suddenly evolved around him. You're quite right. Brooking blossomed into the player, and they bought a couple of half decent hard players that they need, harder players to complement the one or two, Brooking's silky skills. Bonds was at the heart of it, and they won the FA Cup in 1975. And they did have some great moments and games that we could all. I suppose we all still look back on that era, if we're of a certain age, with a certain fondness, because it was very much part of our lives.
Yeah, even though
and Bond sort of, Billy Bonds was sort of I did a tribute to him, and I said, if anybody wanted, what is this mystique? What is this myth? The West Ham way? I spoke to Sam Allardyce about it, when he was manager, and he's was this West Ham way, and it's become a bit of a myth now. But at the height, it was really almost inverted commas passing continental football, but it was always backed up with a bit of passion and pride. And I think, going back to your original point, I think Billy Bonds probably epitomised that and personified that more so in the rounds than Bobby Moore.
You mentioned one of 2 FA Cups that West Ham won under Billy Bonds, though. So despite the fact that both you and Tim agree that that you could have possibly won the league during that time, you won 2 FA Cups. Does that not mitigate against or does that not give the lie to the fact that even though the club was going through a specific time, that the team was underperforming? It was 2 FA Cups for any career is probably double what most people would expect.
Yeah, I mean, as you well know, the FA Cup was the thing in those days. I mean, all the pros would say, winning the league was the test of the best team. But there were a lot of teams, it changed hands quite a lot until Liverpool sort of, started their run during the 80s. I mean, 70 Arsenal won it. Man City, Liverpool, or Man City, it moved around. West Ham never. We didn't. Do you know what? It's an interesting one. We never expected West Ham to win the league, and we went there first and foremost. We went there first and foremost to be entertained at home games, and hopefully to win. But the cup was the thing. Winning the FA Cup was the. It sounds a little bit of a cliche. It sounds a bit passé now, but players of that era, that was the biggest. That was the thing that they wanted to win more than the league.
It stopped the nation, didn't it? The FA Cup, the nation just stopped for it.
Grand National, wasn't it? It was the Grand National of.
Yeah. And I've got a mate. I've lost contact with him now, but he was a kid, and that morning he was the '75 FA Cup final. He was representing Fulham in Junior It's a Knockout on BBC, in the morning, and the '80 FA Cup final is the first time I ever got absolutely drunk in my life. West Ham celebrating, obviously West Ham beating Arsenal in the '80 final, and walking back home in glorious sunshine and just throwing up all over the place and having to deal with my dad. Greenwood became England manager in '77. Now, obviously, he's not going to bring Bobby Moore into his backroom staff, so all that experience is lost because I don't think they were mates. He brings in Jeff Hurst as his backroom staff. Are you surprised that in the reign of Greenwood, he didn't bring Billy Bonds into the squad?
He did actually. He brought him in a couple of times, and he got injured once. And in fact, I think it was a home friendly against Brazil. He moved to centre half by this time. He did walk.
Oh, him and Alvin Martin, yes.
He got into a couple of squads, and there was one where he should have just gone on the pitch. He would have done now for like 1.5 seconds, like they do at the end of a game for some reason. I can't believe it's still appearance bonuses now. But I mean, don't even get me started on why players go on for 30 seconds because it just annoys me. It just really annoys me. But yeah, he was. You could do a good program. On the uncapped players of that era, and he was definitely one of them. I mean, when you think, if you wanted a hard man, Peter Storey, he was a better player than Peter Storey, never got in. No, even then, Greenwood having called him up, I still was surprised that he didn't get on the pitch with Greenwood. I mean, it was funny with Greenwood really, because initially he didn't seem to use Brooking that much. It was only after a while that he did. It does surprise me, and although you've got to remember by the time Greenwood took over, 77, 78, but he was getting near to his 30s, so. And there was a lot
Look how long he went on for. I mean, the thing for me that is just most amazing about Billy Bonds is that he suffers. And you mentioned that great season, the McAvenny Cotty season, 85,
Yeah,
86, when West Ham are in the title race right up until the end. He misses that entire
Yeah.
season. Now, he's already retired in 84. He's retired, but then he comes back the next season. Because they need him, right? So he's back playing.
Yeah.
And then after he's retired, but he's still playing, he suffers this injury that keeps him out for more than an entire season. And he's around the 40 mark, and he still comes back. You know, you think you're that age and you suffer an injury that keeps you out for 18 months. You're going to say, you know what, I've had me run. But he comes back and he plays another couple of years at the end.
He not only comes back that last season, if correct me if I'm wrong, and I haven't got he comes back and he was Player of the Year that season.
Wow!
Because the team were going another dip because Cotty had gone to Everton, and you know they were struggling. And I played with him once, you know, Billy Bonds. It's about 20 years ago, down in Cardiff. You know, one of these games.
So he would have been about 59.
I'm telling you, right? I wasn't a bad player myself, right? But we're not going to go into that. Although I played South East Counties for the Claret and Blue, played a season. You know, it's all right. We can another day, long conversation. What could have been? What should have been? No. So, we're playing one of these games before a Community Shield final down in Cardiff. So you've kind of got the sponsors. You know, like there was a bloke from one of those quite now well-known Welsh pop bands. I can't remember his name, but one of the well-known. Anyway, we got Ray Wilkins on our team. He wasn't. Yeah, he put a bit of weight on. I'm struggling. It's hot. I'm playing up front, running around. I'm running out of breath. You know, I'm struggling a bit. And what would I have been? I'd have been 40 odd, 41, 42, something like that. He he played the whole game, one touch. You know, he wasn't. You're in the dressing room afterwards, and then he takes his shirt off, and I'm like, you look at, he's still ripped, and I've gone, Billy, how old are you? And he's gone, I'm 59. And I'm like, wow, man. I was like, you're 59, which at that time sounded ancient. You know, I'm now 63. So he was the fittest player. And there was a couple of professionals on the opposition. There was a Welsh, you know, I think John Hartson came on and played for a while. You know, it was one of them kind of games. Some bloke, what's the famous Welsh band, pop band? There's not many. It wasn't Tom Jones.
The Alarm.
Yeah. No, that's going back. You know, you're thinking, is it not Stereophonics? Is it? It's
Manic Street Preachers.
Manic Street Preachers, yeah.
One of the well-known. Listen, I like my music, but you know, I'm not really good on that era, that period. It's not really my genre.
Yeah. Age catches us all in the end.
Because I've got to throw this to the floor because you mentioned Diana Ross earlier on, right? And I swear this is, well, I hate it when someone says, I swear this is a true story because you always get a little bit. 94 World Cup, and you brought Diana Ross into it, and I cannot let that one.
94, that was her moment.
I'm in Chicago, and the night before the game, this bloke from MasterCard says, and John Barnes is over there working for some TV channel, and he said, do you two want to go to watch Diana Ross? So I'm like, yeah. I said, I've seen it before once at Albert Hall, but that would be really nice. Thank you. So I go to this concert, whatever you want to call it, with John Barnes, you know, that John Barnes, you know, the Liverpool and England, you know, former Liverpool and England Football International. And we've gone there. It's a good gig, you know, it's Diana Ross, it's fantastic. And afterwards, you know, you go to the little champagne fair afterwards, and I'm there with John Barnes. Sort of a bit of an entourage, but you know, hello, Diana, and you know, you're just sort of hanging on a little bit, but yeah, you're in the company of Diana Ross, and then this bloke's tapping me on the back of my shoulder, and I'm like, yeah, what do you want, mate? And he said, oh, can I just have a word with you? And I'm like, oh, listen, I said, why don't you meet Diana Ross? You know, and he said, oh, that man, he said, I like that intro to that match report you wrote for the Man United. Beating Barcelona 3-1 in Rotterdam. And I went, oh, right, yes. I couldn't. Oh, yeah. What happened was Man United beat Barcelona 3-1. Mark Hughes scored twice, didn't he? And I just didn't know what to write. And then they started playing All Sit Down by James. So I just, typical tabloid, inspired by the PA. And I just wrote, they sang All Sit Down in Rotterdam last night. And Manchester United bowed at the feet of Mark Hughes and Alex, and all that sort of cliche tabloid. But it worked, and it gave the piece a little bit of lift. And the guy said, yeah, really like that. I said, yeah, James. I said, a good band, like the track, not really my genre though. He said, I'm in the band though. He said, we loved it. We thought it was really good. I said, really? I said, you're in the band. I said, what do you do? What do you do in the band then? Thinking he's the guitarist on Tim Booth. And I'm like, what's he do then? He said, well, I'm the singer. I said, do you want to meet Diana Ross? I didn't realise, because not my genre. But Diana Ross saved me in that final, by the way, Tim's Brazil. I like to mention Brazil when I'm on a Brazilian related soccer show. Again, the journalist in distress. It's 0-0. It's gone to penalties. It's the 94 World Cup final. It's the most boring World Cup final of all time. It's in blooming LA, Pasadena, Rose Bowl. It's really hot. And it's really late at night in England. And they're going mad on the newspaper. Can't get the carrier pigeons to go all the way from LA. It was the communication was still, there was always been communication problems, a bit like today. Anyway, I don't know what to write. It's 0-0. There's no angle. There's no one scored. And then, of course,
nothing happened. Yeah.
Nothing happened. But of course, then I remembered the opening, the day after the concert, Diana Ross, she did the opening game.
She missed the goal.
Chicago.
Yeah.
She took a penalty with a beach ball went over the. So then I just suddenly thought, that's it. So I just wrote, so just like Diana Ross, the Italians can't take penalties.
It started as it finished. You mentioned earlier on that Billy Bond's favourite song was The Love I Lost. You mentioned earlier on that the famous favourite song of Billy Bond's was Harold Melvin and the Blue Knights, The Love I Lost. Complete love. Yes. We've all lost him. It was a lovely little piece that you wrote on him and a tribute to him. And the thing that really stood out for me was you paint a portrait of him of a warrior on the field, but a really quiet man off it, who just wants to get showered, get his suit on, and get away as soon as possible, and then go back to the family. And I love that human portrait of him, which probably explains why he was more at home out on the field than he was being a coach. Is that fair?
Oh, I think that's a really good point. I think he was a reluctant. I think had he become a reluctant manager, I think he's one of those guys that would have stuck around really good as someone's number 2, number 3 for a long time. But what happened was, as you know, when John Lyall left and then Vickery took over, it was a bad fit all round. There was all sorts of, a lot of politics. Vickery wanted to change this, change that. Paul Ince was going to Man United. There was all sorts of things going on. It didn't work. And the club was in a mess on the pitch and off it. It kind of, John Lyall, that he'd taken over from Greenwood, that sort of DNA had been cut. And Bonds was there to sort of bring it together, but he kind of was. I always worried, sometimes a hero takes over as a manager a club, and it can go badly wrong, and they can get kind of a lot of hostility, and all the good times are forgotten. That didn't quite happen, but he did a good job as manager. But I didn't think it was him. He didn't like doing. They certainly wouldn't have liked the paraphernalia that they've got to put themselves through now with after the amount of after-match interviews, the pre-match stuff. I mean, the fact of the matter is some managers are appointed now for their ability to talk to the media or the cameras, what profile they might attract on Instagram, or, how they might help sell an advert, as much as what some of their attributes are as a football motivator or manager, or, obviously if they're very good on an iPad, or those magic magnet things that some of these guys seem to use just before a bloke's going on to play, you know, like, yeah, sort of, no. It's good for the camera, though. It looks good
It's
for the
great.
camera.
Keep
Really
yourself
good.
guessing.
It looks good for the owner. Look, I'm doing my job. I should have spent all week telling him who to mark from a corner, but I'm telling him now. So I've done my job. No, Billy would. I mean, he would. No way would he. I mean, see, Billy was a shy and quiet guy, but I know that there were occasions where I mean, Ted McDougall joined West Ham in about 1973, and he'd scored loads of goals from Bournemouth and got a move to Man United, and it didn't work for him at Man United. You know, he jumped up a couple of leagues and he just wasn't cutting a mustard. And he come down to West Ham, quite expensive. He didn't live in too many roads away from where I was living at the time in Ilford. And, you know, those were the days. The players often, you know, they were within our vicinity, and you could tell he went past the, you know, I say a flash car, but I think he had a Jag or something, Ted McDougall. Everybody else had like a Cortina Mark II if they were lucky, a Corsair possibly, or maybe a Zodiac. But I mean, Bobby Moore was allowed to have a Jag. That's different level, but not Ted McDougall. And you know, he turns out he's been a bit flash. And so I was told, you know, but Billy just knocked him out in the dressing room one day. You know, straightened him. That was it. So he could, you know, he could handle himself, Billy Bonds. You know, but he was but that's just when he was pushed a bit too far. But overall, he was a very gentle, quiet person, and he didn't like all the paraphernalia. And I don't really think he liked being manager. I think he liked the coaching side and the motivation side. But I think even back in that, you know, the 90s when he was manager there, let's put it this way, and it became complicated as he took over. Harry Redknapp was far more, and Billy didn't like dealing with intermediaries when it came to buying players, and he didn't want to get involved in all that aspect of how should I term it? The complexities of transfers as they started to evolve, with agents getting involved and multifarious other things that had to be satisfied to get a player or keep a player happy. I mean, I know it sounds so old school, but he just wanted 2 cans, them small cans of Heineken. Do you remember? They used to come in 4-pack, little 4-pack. There was half the size of a normal, third of the size of a normal can now. And he just had them in his hand. That was it. It's probably stuck in me. He probably drunk him in the Blackwall Tunnel. I don't know, back in the day. But he wasn't. But again, he wasn't like he was. That would have been it for him. That was it. Home, boom. You know. And no, he didn't relish management. No. It was as I put in the piece, and I put it delicate. It's delicate. Harry Redknapp was they were very good friends as players, you know, but. Probably something no one's really touched on is the manner in which Harry eventually took over from Billy. It was complicated because the board at the time, the chairman at the time, wanted Billy just to become an ambassador for the club, and he didn't want to do that. He felt it had been taken away from him in a not the best manner. But Harry tells a different story, and you know. Without veering too much off into Harry was a great character for West Ham and then moved on. But he was nowhere near as a player held in such esteem as Billy Bonds. But Harry Redknapp was a better manager for West Ham than Billy Bonds.
Yeah, in terms of the spirit, though, which whatever that is, you know, however you encapsulate that, if Billy Bonds is the spirit of West Ham, old school West Ham, maybe, perhaps even current West Ham. Who's a player today? I would have thought Jared Bowen's got a little bit of that about him. Can't see many others.
I suppose there was Mark Noble for a long time, wasn't he? Was Mark Noble a kind of Billy Bonds for the 21st century?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, and Declan Rice. You know, let's not forget he played for West Ham. He's West Ham. If Arsenal win the season, which obviously I think. Well, I want them to, and I hope they do, for goodness sake. Got enough friends that are Arsenal fans, and they really need it, or they want it.
Just lost one of your mates.
Who?
No, I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide. Yeah.
Oh, it's a London club. Come on, what's happened to this?
No.
So anyway, listen. Yeah, Declan Rice. I mean, when I tried to sort of comparing Billy Bonds to current players now is quite difficult. But I mentioned Roy Keane, because he was a midfield marauder at his best, and Declan Rice. There's a little bit. I mean, obviously there's big differences as well. But Mark Noble, yes, he embodied that very much so. Declan Rice, I felt, did to a large degree. Gerard Bowen's a very good player, but he hasn't got that leader. And he's funny, his inability to be that sort of heart on the sleeve captain was shown when he didn't do enough to stop Paqueta getting sent off.
Alisson did more than he did, playing for the opposition.
Billy Bonds would have dragged the guy he would have dragged Paqueta by the neck, and he would have probably dragged him down the tunnel and kicked him up the backside on the way. He would have prevented him getting sent off. He'd have got him mandatory substituted. He would have been gone. He would have I'm telling you, he would have been gone. Absolutely. In fact, there's a great picture that comes to mind of Julian Dix, who had a little bit of the DNA of Bonds, and he's having a bit of a set when Billy Bonds was manager, a bit of a set to with player. And there's this Billy Bonds in a jacket and tie running onto the pitch to pull him off. I mean, Billy Bonds was one of those guys. He would always get when things sort of started to happen. He normally intervene, normally as the peacemaker, because no one would really mess with him particularly that much. I mean, as I said, going back when he was, he was super fit. When he was always the first in cross country training. And there's a few pictures of him. When they talk about the fitness of players now, I mean, Billy Bonds he had the body of a heavyweight boxer. There's a picture of him at Chadwell Heath. I don't know, maybe early 80s, maybe late 70s, with a few weights. He was 6'2", and obviously eyes of blue. Billy Bonds is coming after you. But he was 6'1", 6'2", and 13 and a half stone. That's heavy. It's light heavyweight material.
Yeah, it's cruiserweight. Yeah.
Ripped, and again, a couple of cans of beer. He wasn't a boozer. These guys, a lot of people love to, let's not forget, by the way, one of the great images of him is him playing with his socks rolled down, like a lot of them did. And one of the myths people like to talk about is, it was hard. There were more tackles then, but the players actually went for the ball, right? Yes, occasionally they did miss, and some players, did go for other parts of the body. I grant. But, the fact that these players were not fit in those days, a lot of them are fitter now in different ways. They're fitter like the different. I mean, if you see Usain Bolt, right? Usain Bolt's got to be the fastest player on the pitch. We've seen him play in
Australia, wasn't it?
We played Soccer Aid and stuff like that. Usain Bolt, fastest player on the pitch, and he's probably fitter than anybody else, but it doesn't mean he can play football. And I'm sorry, there's quite a lot of players now that, in my view, are super fit that don't have a lot of the technique or the roundness of the game that a lot of those guys back in that era did. That, Tim, I don't know if you agree with me on that front or not.
Well, it's quicker, isn't it? So
he is a player technically. People would say he's technically a great player, and I do think it's an interesting juxtaposition of on the day that Billy Bonds passed, on the day that there was a minute's silence, on the day the fans were applauding him, and we have this other guy who's on a lot of money that apparently is going to, is destined to go and play for a great club, be sold, and I just don't get him. I don't see him as a a player. I mean, is he going to? Do you think he's an integral part of the Brazil squad for the World Cup?
He has been. Remember, midfield isn't their strongest suit. They've got more wingers than they know what to do with. They've got a few centre forwards now coming through, which has been a rough area. They're centre backs. They're terrific. Central midfield is not great. And what he does is he gives you a lot of options, and he can play as an old wing half. He can play deeper. He can play as a 10.
He could. There's one position he could play possibly as a 10. We'll get back to Billy in a second because it's going to drive me nuts and I'm going to go mad. But
he can play centre forward. He can play as a wider. I mean, he's done. There have been Brazil games when he's filled 3 different positions in the same game and done them all right.
Joe, he hasn't. Skill player. Joe Linton's a better player, but he's not as fashionable. Can we get back to Billy?
I think that's probably true. Yeah. You took it there. I'm happy to keep it on Billy Bonds.
I'm shaking with rage when I'm thinking of this guy, this Paqueta. I'm just shaking. He's just not doing it. Billy Bonds, I just imagine what Billy Bonds would do with him in training.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
God, I'll have to have a cold shower after this. I played football.
What we don't want you to do, Rob, what we don't want you to do is go away and worry on your own. I don't want you to worry. Don't worry about a thing, Frankie Five Angels.
Look,
and
this morning,
don't make the rest of us worry.
I play do not laugh. I play what they call walking football now, right? This is for people over or of a certain age, right? Of which I am now.
We're all there. We're all 60 and above.
One broadcaster the other day.
Speak for yourself.
One broadcaster got told off the other day for calling someone else of a certain age. We can accept that of a certain age if we're of a certain age, right?
No worries.
So walking football, right? And I tell you, this morning I walked quicker than Paqueta. But then you should. That wasn't very hard. Right. So,
but you played against Billy Bonds. He hasn't.
But when I was writing that piece, you were thinking of Billy Bonds. There's another great moment, Tim. You're right. It wasn't really a great moment. It was the '71 League Cup semi-final, and that was a bit of a kind of a seismic moment in terms of the direction of travel of West Ham. So we thought they were going to reach the final, because they're in the semi-final. They've beaten Stoke away 2-1. John Ritchie scores for Stoke. It's 1-1, and then about 3 minutes to go, Gordon Banks brings down Harry Redknapp. It's a penalty. So we've got Hurst v Banks.
Hurst against Banks. Yeah.
Bonds can't watch. So again, this brazen, tough guy, but he's emotional. He's inside. It's the first, shot at Wembley, 1971. Well, it's 72 now because it was 71-72 League Cup. And we're going to be playing Chelsea in the final. That's going to be really what we want to see. It'll be the first time I'm going to Wembley. I'm like 8-9 years old against Chelsea. Jeff Hurst is going to score. He hits it really hard. Bonds, he's bent on the halfway line. He can't watch. Ball goes roaring into the top corner. Gordon Banks saves it. And years later, I know I'm name dropping a little bit, but why not? Why not? I'm at a function with the 66 boys. So it would have been around Euro 96, and Umbro had done one of the Umbro plug there. There are other boot manufacturers available. And I'm with all the 66 boys at this function that's put on. And afterwards, a few drinks afterwards, all of them were there then, all of them, except Bobby Moore, actually, the only one that wasn't there. Now, unfortunately, there's only Jeff left from the Jeff Hurst. And I was talking to Gordon Banks, and I said, you know what, you ruined, he really wanted to hear me at like 11 o'clock at night when he's having a beer. You ruined my childhood, you did. I said, I was all ready to go to Wembley. You saved that. Because Stoke went on to beat Chelsea in the final. George Easton, the veteran.
George Easton, yeah.
And he went, he said, do you know what? He said, that was a better save than the one I made from Pelé. And
wow.
I'm like, what? I said, what do you mean? I said, that was the save of the century. He said, yeah, I know. He said, I know World Cup, everything. He said, I know it was a great save. I know everybody talks about it. He said, but the thing is, the ball went down and it took the pace off it a bit. And so I kind of read it. And yeah, I just had that extra bit. He said, but with Jeff, he said, he hit it really hard. It was going to the top corner. He said it was my best save ever. And I'm like, oh. He said, the only thing is, he said, what helped me? And I said, what was that? He said, well, he used to practice penalties against me for England in training, so I had no idea where it was going. Oh God!
Imagine if he'd come to West Ham, because the Scottish goalkeeper you brought in was like tiny, wasn't he? He really wasn't great.
It wasn't. It's funny how he was touching 6 foot, but he was small. Although in the days when Ipswich had Laurie Civil, who was about 4'7", 5'7", not 4'7". Sorry, that oh, goodness me, that's Sam Fox territory. That's a different story. No, then Paul Cooper, the smaller guy. But yes, he wasn't the greatest goalkeeper, Bobby Ferguson, and that was a big difference. That they struggled with replacing Ken Brown, but Tommy Taylor, had they got a decent goalkeeper, had they got Gordon Banks, West Ham might well have been what they should have become, as you said, moving out of right at the start of the show from the 60s going forward. But you also were right, and you might have upset West Ham fans, but you totally absolutely die hard believers in the Bubbles faith. The more the God that is Bobby Moore, of course, as I said, he's deity. But yeah, Billy Bonds was like Jesus. He looked like Jesus, you know. He really did, you know.
Yeah, those football boots were his flip flops, aren't they? They were his Jesus sandals. No, look, for generations he was a mainstay of West Ham, and arguably, whether we talk about the spirit or whatever he was, we know that he was there solidly in your, you know,
what a legacy.
What a legacy. Absolutely. Mate, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You know, we could talk for days, and maybe we will on another occasion. But for this time, Rob Shepherd, you know, can't do it without you. It's an absolutely brilliant tribute.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. And I'll tell you another thing, Tim. I'll tell you another thing. Maybe 26 years. No, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a prediction. I'm going to make a prediction now. Right? England will win the World Cup next year.
Right. So you're not going away to worry on your own. You're giving us all some hope now. Don't make the rest of us worry. Don't make the rest of us worry.
He won't let it go, mate. He won't let it go.
You know what? I wished I'd known that documentary was coming out and I'd made a royalties deal.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Yes.
Yeah. Mate,
you've given me an idea.
Yeah.
Tell me about it in 26 years' time.
Actually, I don't think England will win the World Cup. I just wanted to see what your reaction would be. I'm not sure Brazil will win it. Who do I think will win? I don't know why I'm saying this, but I just want to leave you with a thought of the World Cup. I'm going to go France.
I'm probably going to go Spain, but hopefully we're going to have fun finding out.
I think it'll be Spain, is my thoughts, but you know, we'll wait and see. I think it will be fun either way, and it's a shame that none of us can back England at this stage, but who knows, between now and then it might change. No. Mate, thank you very much. Let me just remind everybody, do subscribe to the pod. As you can hear, Rob's been an amazing guest. We've got more like this, of course, during the course of our commitment.
Monday afternoon for the World Cup draw.
Oh, we're going to do that Monday afternoon.
Why not?
Yeah, let's do it. Monday afternoon, we'll be back again. This has been the Global Soccer Interactive. Join us on our WhatsApp group, amongst other things. And Rob, whenever we can book you back, you're in.
Get in touch with the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast on Twitter @BrazilShirtPod, or you can email us BrazilianShirtNamePod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and tell a friend. The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast is an 1129 production.